Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights stands as one of the most compelling and unconventional works of English literature. Published in 1847 under the pseudonym Ellis Bell, this singular novel defies the conventions of its time, weaving a dark and tumultuous tale of love and revenge that unfolds against the haunting backdrop of the Yorkshire moors. Emily Bronte, the middle of the three literary Bronte sisters, lived a quiet and reclusive life. Her intimate knowledge of the rugged landscape surrounding her home shaped the novel's atmosphere. The windswept moors are more than a setting. They become a character in their own right, reflecting the wild and untamed emotions that drive the story forward. At its heart, Wuthering Heights explores themes of love in its most passionate and destructive forms. The novel examines the consequences of obsession and betrayal, tracing how a single choice can ripple across generations. Alongside love and revenge, it probes questions of class and the constraints of societal norms. Bronte's characters, driven by raw, unfiltered emotions, seem as boundless as the moors themselves, defying conventions and embracing their fates with ferocious intensity. As we delve into this masterpiece, we uncover a narrative as raw and vivid as the landscape it inhabits, a story of love that transcends life and death, and of revenge that poisons every heart it touches. The story of Wuthering Heights begins with Mr. Lockwood, a gentleman from London who rents Thrushcross Grange in the Yorkshire moors, seeking solitude and escape from urban life. His first visit to Wuthering Heights, the home of his landlord Heathcliff, provides a vivid introduction to the novel's setting and the tension it embodies. Wuthering Heights is a dark, foreboding structure perched on the wild and windswept moors. The house is as untamed as the land around it, battered by fierce storms and surrounded by rugged, barren terrain. Its appearance is stark and imposing, with narrow windows, jagged stone walls, and a heavy oak door reinforced with iron spikes. Inside, the atmosphere is equally unwelcoming, filled with heavy, old-fashioned furniture, snarling dogs, and an air of hostility. Everything about Wuthering Heights reflects the wild and untamed passions of its inhabitants, setting the tone for the story that unfolds within its walls. In stark contrast stands Thrushcross Grange, a refined and orderly estate situated in a sheltered valley. The Grange is an oasis of calm, surrounded by cultivated gardens and gentle landscapes. Its bright, airy rooms adorned with luxurious furnishings and lit by soft candlelight symbolize civilization, propriety, and comfort. The Grange serves as the antithesis of Wuthering Heights, representing the ideals of control, decorum, and societal norms. Between these two contrasting worlds lie the moors, an expansive and untamed landscape that serves as the heart of the story. The moors are vast, lonely, and unpredictable, stretching endlessly under shifting skies. They are both beautiful and dangerous, filled with hidden bogs and treacherous paths. For Catherine Earnshaw and Heathcliff, the moors are a sanctuary, a place where they can escape the confines of their respective homes and revel in their shared connection. Here they are free to roam, unbound by the rigid expectations of society, and their spirits seem to merge with the wildness of the land. However, the moors are more than a setting. They are a metaphor for the intense emotions that drive the novel. The wild, unpredictable nature of the landscape mirrors the stormy relationships between the characters. Catherine's passionate, impulsive nature and Heathcliff's brooding intensity are perfectly aligned with the fierce winds and shifting weather of the moors. At the same time, the isolation of the moors reflects the emotional loneliness that haunts many of the characters, trapping them in cycles of love, betrayal, and revenge. Throughout the novel, the stark contrast between Wuthering Heights and Thrushcross Grange is not merely a difference in physical appearance, but a reflection of deeper themes. Wuthering Heights, with its rough, untamed character, represents the raw, primal emotions of love and revenge. The Grange, on the other hand, embodies order, gentility, and the constraints of societal expectations. These two worlds are deeply intertwined, their conflicts driving the narrative forward as the characters move between them, torn between passion and restraint, freedom, and conformity. In this vivid setting, Emily Brontë masterfully establishes the tone of her story, weaving the moors, the heights, and the Grange into the very fabric of the characters' lives. The landscape becomes a living, breathing force, shaping the destiny of those who inhabit it and creating an atmosphere of intensity that remains unmatched in literary history. The heart of Wuthering Heights begins to take shape with the arrival of a mysterious orphan named Heathcliff. One stormy night, Mr. Earnshaw, the master of Wuthering Heights, returns home from a trip to Liverpool, carrying the frail boy in his arms. Dirty, silent, and of unknown origin, Heathcliff's sudden presence unsettles the household. Mr. Earnshaw declares that the boy is now part of the family, naming him after a son who had died in infancy. From the outset, Heathcliff's arrival disrupts the balance at Wuthering Heights. Hindley, Mr. Earnshaw's elder son, is furious at having to share his father's affection with this strange intruder. His resentment grows as Mr. Earnshaw begins favoring Heathcliff over his own children, praising the boy's intelligence and resilience. Catherine, however, reacts differently. The spirited young girl forms an immediate bond with Heathcliff, and their shared wildness and love of the moors soon forge a deep and inseparable connection. As the years pass, Catherine and Heathcliff become inseparable, spending their days running freely across the windswept moors. They share a fierce, unspoken understanding that transcends words, finding in each other a kindred spirit that no one else can comprehend. They are wild and untamed, much like the landscape that surrounds them, and their bond seems to exist outside the constraints of society. When Mr. Earnshaw dies, however, the fragile balance at Wuthering Heights collapses. Hindley, now the master of the house, seizes the opportunity to exact revenge on Heathcliff. Filled with bitterness and jealousy, Hindley relegates Heathcliff to the status of a servant, stripping him of any semblance of equality. He forces Heathcliff to perform menial labor, denies him education, and subjects him to relentless humiliation. Despite this cruelty, Heathcliff endures, fueled by an inner strength and an unrelenting desire for retribution. Under Hindley's tyranny, the relationship between Catherine and Heathcliff faces its first challenges. Catherine is torn between her love for Heathcliff and the pressures of social expectations. Her fiery spirit and natural arrogance lead her to desire a life beyond the confines of Wuthering Heights, a life that Heathcliff, as a degraded servant, cannot offer. This early conflict lays the foundation for the intense drama that follows. Hindley's cruelty plants the seeds of hatred and revenge in Heathcliff's heart, while Catherine's divided loyalties begin to fracture their once unbreakable bond. The moors, once a symbol of their unity, now bear witness to the storm that brews between them, setting the stage for the dark and tragic tale that will unfold. As Catherine and Heathcliff grow older, their bond faces its first true test with the introduction of Edgar Linton, a polished and gentle young man from Thrushcross Grange. The meeting occurs after Catherine and Heathcliff, in a moment of mischievous curiosity, spy on the Linton family at the Grange. When their presence is discovered, a scuffle with the Lintons' dog injures Catherine, leading to her being invited to stay at the Grange to recover. During her time there, Catherine experiences a world vastly different from the rugged life at Wuthering Heights. The Lintons, refined and proper, shower her with attention, and she quickly forms an attachment to Edgar. His polite manners and cultured demeanor appeal to her growing awareness of societal expectations and her desire for a life of comfort and status. When Catherine returns to Wuthering Heights weeks later, her transformation is evident. She adopts a more refined appearance and demeanor, distancing herself from Heathcliff, whose roughness now contrasts sharply with Edgar's sophistication. Heathcliff, deeply wounded by this shift, begins to feel the sting of rejection, though his love for Catherine remains unshaken. The tension escalates as Edgar courts Catherine, and she finds herself torn between two opposing forces. Heathcliff represents her wild, untamed soul, the passionate and rebellious side of her nature that revels in freedom and intensity. Edgar, on the other hand, offers stability, social acceptance, and a future that aligns with the conventions of the world she inhabits. This inner conflict comes to a head in one of the novel's most famous scenes. Catherine confides in Nellie Dean, the housekeeper, about her feelings, expressing her torment in a heartfelt monologue. She admits to loving Heathcliff with a profound intensity, declaring, "I am Heathcliff, he's always, always in my mind, not as a pleasure, any more than I am always a pleasure to myself, but as my own being." Yet despite this, she resolves to marry Edgar, believing that Heathcliff's low social status renders him an unsuitable match. She rationalizes her decision by claiming that marriage to Edgar will allow her to help Heathcliff rise above his current station. Unbeknownst to Catherine, Heathcliff overhears part of this conversation, enough to understand that she plans to marry Edgar, but not enough to hear her declaration of love for him. Heartbroken and enraged, Heathcliff leaves Wuthering Heights without a word, disappearing into the night. Catherine is devastated by his sudden departure, though she suppresses her anguish and proceeds with her engagement to Edgar. In the months that follow, Catherine marries Edgar and moves to Thrushcross Grange, stepping fully into the role of a genteel wife. Initially, her life at the Grange seems idyllic, but beneath the surface, her restless spirit remains. The refined world of the Lintons cannot quell the storm within her, and the absence of Heathcliff leaves an ache that she cannot ignore. The consequences of Catherine's choice soon begin to unfold. Her marriage, though outwardly harmonious, is shadowed by her lingering love for Heathcliff and the knowledge that she has betrayed her own heart. Her decision to prioritize social ambition over her true feelings sets the stage for the tragedy that will engulf all those connected to Wuthering Heights and Thrushcross Grange. 3 years after his sudden departure, Heathcliff returns to Wuthering Heights as a transformed man. No longer the degraded servant Hindley had once tormented, Heathcliff is now wealthy, confident, and commanding. His mysterious rise in fortune is never explained, but it is clear that he has returned with a singular purpose: revenge. His primary targets are Hindley, who humiliated and abused him, and Edgar Linton, whom he sees as the rival who stole Catherine from him. Upon his return, Heathcliff finds Wuthering Heights in a state of disrepair. Hindley, broken by the death of his wife, Frances, has descended into alcoholism and gambling, neglecting both the estate and his young son, Hareton. Heathcliff seizes this opportunity to manipulate Hindley, encouraging his gambling habits and offering loans, knowing that Hindley's mounting debts will eventually cost him the Heights. Over time, Heathcliff gains control of the estate, reducing Hindley to a pitiful figure entirely dependent on him. Hareton, Hindley's son, becomes an unintended victim of Heathcliff's revenge. Rather than raising the boy as an equal, Heathcliff ensures that Hareton grows up uneducated and rough, mirroring Heathcliff's own treatment as a child. Yet despite Heathcliff's cruelty, Hareton develops an attachment to him, unaware of the true nature of his manipulator. Heathcliff's vengeance extends to Thrushcross Grange, where his hatred for Edgar Linton drives him to exploit Edgar's sister, Isabella. Knowing she has developed a romantic infatuation with him, Heathcliff feigns affection and elopes with her, not out of love, but as a means to wound Edgar. Once married, Heathcliff reveals his true nature, treating Isabella with disdain and cruelty. Isolated at Wuthering Heights, she becomes a prisoner of her husband's rage and vengeance. Her romantic illusions of Heathcliff as a brooding hero shatter as she endures his violent outbursts and cold indifference. Eventually, she escapes to London, where she gives birth to their son, Linton Heathcliff. Though freed from Heathcliff's physical presence, Isabella remains haunted by the trauma of their marriage. The greatest impact of Heathcliff's schemes is felt by Catherine herself. His return reignites her suppressed emotions, and their volatile reunion reveals the depth of their unresolved feelings. Their confrontations are marked by both passion and anguish, as Catherine's divided loyalties tear her apart. Catherine's fragile health deteriorates under the strain, and she becomes increasingly unstable. In one pivotal encounter, Heathcliff accuses her of betraying him by marrying Edgar, while Catherine blames him for her misery and for pursuing revenge rather than reconciliation. Their mutual recriminations reveal the destructive intensity of their love, which is as much a source of pain as it is of connection. Tragically, Catherine dies shortly after giving birth to her daughter, Cathy Linton. Her death devastates both Edgar and Heathcliff. For Heathcliff, her passing solidifies his resolve for vengeance, but it also leaves him consumed by grief and a sense of emptiness. In a moment of raw emotion, Heathcliff begs Catherine's spirit to haunt him, declaring that he cannot live without her. Heathcliff's vengeance does not end with Catherine's death. His manipulations extend to the next generation, ensuring that the children of his enemies will suffer as he did. He orchestrates Linton Heathcliff's return to Wuthering Heights after Isabella's death, using the frail and sickly boy as a pawn in his schemes. At the same time, Cathy Linton, the daughter of Edgar and Catherine, grows up sheltered at Thrushcross Grange, unaware of her family's dark history. Heathcliff's ultimate goal is to unite Linton and Cathy in marriage, securing his control over both Thrushcross Grange and Wuthering Heights. Heathcliff's calculated revenge creates a web of suffering that ensnares everyone connected to him. His schemes poison relationships, destroy lives, and perpetuate the cycle of cruelty and despair that began in his youth. Yet, beneath his vengeful actions lies a profound sorrow, as his every move is driven by the loss of Catherine and the emptiness left in her wake. As the story transitions to the next generation, the legacy of love, revenge, and suffering established by Catherine and Heathcliff begins to unfold in the lives of their children and relatives. The focus shifts to Cathy Linton, the daughter of Catherine and Edgar, Hareton Earnshaw, the son of Hindley, and Linton Heathcliff, the son of Heathcliff and Isabella. Their intertwined fates form the final chapters of the story, offering both echoes of the past and glimpses of redemption. Cathy Linton grows up in the sheltered environment of Thrushcross Grange, raised by her doting father, Edgar Linton. She inherits her mother's beauty and spirited nature but is tempered by Edgar's gentleness and moral guidance. Cathy's early life is filled with comfort and innocence, with little knowledge of the dark history of Wuthering Heights or her family's tumultuous past. Her life takes a turn when she encounters Wuthering Heights and its inhabitants. Heathcliff, still driven by his schemes, manipulates circumstances to bring Cathy into his sphere of influence. He intends to use her as a pawn in his plan to consolidate control over both estates. Linton Heathcliff, the sickly son of Heathcliff and Isabella, is brought to Wuthering Heights after his mother's death. Weak and self-centered, he grows up under Heathcliff's harsh rule. Heathcliff sees Linton not as a son but as a tool to further his revenge. He arranges for Linton to court Cathy, exploiting her kindness and naivety to draw her closer to Wuthering Heights. When Cathy and Linton meet, she is struck by his delicate appearance and soft manners, but their relationship is fraught with tension. Linton's selfishness and manipulative behavior make him a poor match for Cathy's spirited and compassionate nature. Despite this, Heathcliff forces their marriage, ensuring that Linton inherits Thrushcross Grange upon Edgar's death. Hareton Earnshaw, Hindley's son, grows up in the shadow of Heathcliff's revenge. Deprived of education and treated as a servant, he is rough and unpolished, a far cry from the gentleman he might have been. Yet, despite his upbringing, Hareton possesses an innate kindness and resilience that shine through his rough exterior. Cathy's initial interactions with Hareton are marked by disdain. She mocks his lack of refinement and education, unaware of the hardships he has endured. Hareton, deeply hurt by her scorn, keeps his distance but secretly admires her spirit. After Linton Heathcliff's death, which leaves Cathy a widow at a young age, she finds herself trapped at Wuthering Heights, under Heathcliff's control. Despite their strained relationship, Cathy and Hareton begin to form a bond. Initially, their interactions are marked by conflict, but over time, Cathy's compassion and Hareton's quiet strength draw them together. Cathy takes it upon herself to teach Hareton to read, bridging the gap between them. Hareton's willingness to learn and Cathy's growing respect for his sincerity and courage allow their relationship to blossom. Through their shared efforts, they begin to heal the wounds inflicted by the previous generation. Their budding romance offers a stark contrast to the destructive passions of Heathcliff and Catherine. While the love of the older generation was marked by obsession and chaos, Cathy and Hareton's relationship is built on mutual respect, understanding, and a desire to overcome the past. As Cathy and Hareton grow closer, Heathcliff's vengeful spirit begins to wane. The sight of their bond reminds him of his lost love for Catherine and the futility of his schemes. Consumed by memories of Catherine and haunted by her ghost, Heathcliff becomes increasingly withdrawn, losing his drive for revenge. Eventually, Heathcliff dies, leaving Wuthering Heights in the hands of Cathy and Hareton. With his passing, the cycle of hatred and vengeance that dominated the lives of 2 generations finally comes to an end. The story concludes with Cathy and Hareton planning to marry and leave Wuthering Heights for Thrushcross Grange. Their union symbolizes the possibility of redemption and renewal, a chance to break free from the darkness of the past and build a future founded on love and hope. Through the intertwined lives of Cathy, Hareton, and Linton, Emily Brontë brings Wuthering Heights full circle, offering a poignant resolution to the tale of passion, revenge, and redemption. The glimmer of hope in the next generation provides a fitting conclusion to this timeless story, showing that even in the face of tragedy, love has the power to heal and transform. Wuthering Heights explores the destructive nature of unbridled passion through the tumultuous relationship between Heathcliff and Catherine. Their love, though profound, becomes a force of chaos, driving them to betray themselves and those around them. This passion, unchecked by reason or compassion, leaves a trail of suffering across generations. The Yorkshire moors, wild and untamed, serve as both a setting and a symbol for the characters' emotions. The moors mirror the raw intensity of Heathcliff and Catherine's bond, while also representing freedom and escape from societal constraints. Nature's enduring presence in the novel emphasizes its power to reflect and influence human lives. Wuthering Heights remains a literary masterpiece for its portrayal of complex characters and intense emotions. Emily Brontë weaves a haunting tale of love, revenge, and redemption, exploring the depths of human passion and the consequences of choices. The novel's dark beauty and raw honesty continue to captivate readers, offering profound insights into the human condition. Its layered narrative and rich symbolism invite readers to revisit the story and discover new meanings each time.